Hi, this is Heather Laffner. This is my screencast assignment for Education 150. Criterion reference tests. These are tests that measure student performance against a set number of predetermined criteria or learning standards, and these will be set up when you do your IEPs. A formative assessment. That is a range of formal and informal assessment procedures employed by teachers during the learning process in order to modify teaching and learning activities to improve the student's attainment. And this is an example of a formative assessment that you would give to a student. A summative assessment. These are used to evaluate student learning skills and academic achievement at the conclusion of a defined instructional period, typically like at the end of the school year or a project semester, like a big unit test, an exam for like college students. And this would be an example of that. It would go over everything that they had learned in the semester, unit, year, whatever the defined period was. Triangulation, evolution, triangulation. This is where you should assess a student off all three of these, formative or summative assessment, your notes from the assessment, and your observations. You shouldn't just do it off of one, because they may say that they do well and you may observe them doing well with somebody else, but the minute you give them a summative assessment, they may not do very well because they don't really understand what they're doing. They're just getting the help from the other person so they understand it. This is a Begans test. This test is only used in the special education department. This is the front of the English one, or writing one for the students. This is where the teacher would have this, and on the right side where it says directions, they're literally, the teacher is going to read word for word those directions, and when they get to the part where it tells the student to read the form that they were supposed to, they will just point to the form and let the student read that. And down in the left hand corner you'll see where it says Form A and Form B. Those are the answers to the questions that the student's going to have. So you can just mark on there what the student answers and then grade it all at the end. This is the first grade placement test or Begans test for math. This is kind of like, you could see how it's ran. So after I, the teacher, read the instructions and told them that they were to add or subtract the numbers, they would write it on this sheet of paper, and then I would grade it on my piece of paper by what they wrote on this. If they got 80% or less, they do not move on to the next grade level. If you think they can, you can move on with them to see if they just made a mistake, or, see if you can figure out what happened. And some students won't be able to move on without a calculator. You'll be able to tell that as well. This was kind of my observations for my formative, summative teacher observations this year, for the 2015-2016 data for Thomas. His formative assessment improved each time that I did it. I tested him in September, January, and May. And he started at the 2nd grade level, and he's progressed up to the 4th grade level. And that is with the calculator. Results are a really good thing to keep. Data, all that, are really good to keep because it explains what the kids already know. If you don't know yet, if they're new to you, what they need to work on, so you can kind of look back to that. So if they have some free time or you're trying to figure out the lessons, you can look back to that. You can see what grade level they need to start at the next year, what one they're really at, and what subjects, how to teach them and how they learn. And if you need multiple instruction, like if you have 4 or 5 kids in your class and they're all at different grade levels, you're going to know you need multiple instruction, so you can give them all something to do at their own grade level. Teaching a lesson. This is a video that Katie Van Orden and I made to help students in our class. And this is the lesson we taught them.
Today we're going to learn about multiplying and dividing fractions. For multiplying fractions, you're going to go straight across the top and straight across the bottom. So if you have 1/5.
So this is the lesson that we showed them how to do and use the rhymes so that they could remember the story problem.
So you're going to have 3, and then straight across the bottom is going to be 35, and that's going to be your answer. If you had anything to simplify down to, you'd simplify down that, and then you'd have your answer.
Okay, now we're going to move on to division. And when you're dividing fractions, the saying goes, it's as easy as pi, flip the second, and multiply. So again, if you have 1/5 divided by 3/7, you're going to take the second one, your 3/7, and you're going to flip it. So it's going to become 7/3. And then you're just going to multiply by your 1/5. And again, for multiplication, it's straight across the top, and then straight across the bottom. So you're going to have 7/15, and there's nothing to simplify with there, so that's just going to be your answer. Good job today, and tomorrow we'll be practicing more multiplication and division of fractions.
Okay, so that's just kind of a lesson that they can use, or you could use to show students how to do the problems. Instructing a child with learning disabilities, this was a really cool article that we read, and we were supposed to relate it back to something that we had learned like in class, and I kind of related it back to the video that I showed you right before this. A lot of kids that have learning disabilities have a really hard time remembering things from day to day, or like problem to problem, like changing fractions into decimals and things like that. And then when you teach them something else, they have a really hard time coming back to that to remember it. So something that I did with my students is I made up story problems to go along with the problem, so that way they could kind of remember, or rhymes, just like in the video. Katie and I did a rhyme. When you're multiplying, it's straight across the top, straight across the bottom. And then when you're dividing is easy as pi, flip the second, and multiply. So that kind of helps them remember it, because it's like a rhythm that they say in their head. A reflection, this class was really informative, and it told me a lot that I did not know about special education. There's a lot more to it than any individual would think. You have to have a lot of patience to work with special education or students with learning disabilities. They do need a lot more one-on-one time, and you really got to structure your class to where you have students at different grade levels. But it's very rewarding at the same time. You can walk out of that classroom if you know your student got it, and you can feel great. It's very rewarding when you finally get the students to understand and remember, because that's not something that's a day-to-day basis for them like it is somebody in a general education class. But it can be very frustrating at times. Like we saw in our placement class, the students aren't always well-behaved. It takes time to get them well-behaved and into your teaching methods. So that's something that you have to be really patient about again. But this class was very informative, and I really would recommend it to anybody going into the education world, because whether you're general ed or special ed, you will probably have learning disabilities in your classroom. But that's the end of the video. Thank you.